sedan chairs, silver toothbrushes, fans, and fricassees. And names. In the hope of some preferment, a near neighbour of mine in Norfolk, James Gourlay, an ugly, rather disgusting person as it happens, has inserted a D into his otherwise Scottish-sounding name. So far, the only reward to come to the pompous de Gourlay is that a French wit at my dinner table dubbed him Monsieur Dégueulasse. We giggled a great deal at this. And some new scarlet breeches of mine was stained with the mouthful of raisin pudding I was forced to spit out in my attack of mirth. So this is how you might imagine me, at table, rustling with laughter in a gaudy suit, my migrant hair flattened by a luxuriant wig, my freckles powdered, my eyes twinkling in the candlelight, my pudding being ejected from my mouth by that force within me which snorts at sobriety and is so greedy for foolishness. Do not flatter yourself that I am elegant or worthy in any way, but yet I am, at this moment that you glimpse me, a rather popular man. I am also in the middle of a story which might have a variety of endings, some of them not entirely to my liking. The messy constellations I see through my telescope give me no clue to my destiny. There is, in other words, a great deal about the world and my role in it which, despite all my early learning, I utterly fail to understand. There was a beginning to the story, or possibly a variety of beginnings. These are they. 1. In 1636, when I was 9 years old, I carried out my first anatomical dissection. My instruments were a kitchen knife, 2 mustard spoons made of bone, 4 millinery pins, and a measuring rod. The cadaver was a starling. I performed this feat of exploration in our coal cellar, into which, through the coal hole, came a crepuscular light, augmented a little by the 2 candles I placed on my dissecting tray. As I cut into the thorax, a well of excitement began to fill and glimmer within me. It rose as I worked, until, with the body of the starling opened and displayed before me, I suddenly recognized, caught a glimpse of my own future. 2. At King's College, Cambridge, in 1647, I met my poor friend Pierce. His room was below mine on the cold stairway. We were both by then students of anatomy, and though our natures are so antipathetic, our rejection of Galenic theory, coupled with our desire to discover the precise function of each part of the body in relation to the whole, formed a bond between us. One evening, Pierce came up to my room in a state of hilarious perturbation. His face, habitually grey-toned and flaky, was rubicund and damp, his stern green eyes suddenly afflicted with a louche brightness. "Merivel! Merivel!" he babbled. "Come down to my room. A person is standing in it who has a visible heart." "Have you been drinking, Pierce?" I asked. "Have you broken your vow of no sack?" "No!" exploded Pierce. "Now, come down, and you will see for yourself this extraordinary phenomenon. And for a shilling, the person says he will permit us to touch it." "Touch his heart?" "Yes." "It's not a cadaver, then, if its mind is on money." "Now come, Merivel, before he flees into the night and is lost to our research for all eternity." Pierce, I report in parenthesis, has this flowery, sometimes melodramatic way of speaking that is interestingly at odds with the clipped, odourless, and self-denying man he is. I often feel that no anatomical experiment would be capable of discovering the function of these ornate sentences in relation to the whole soberly dressed person, unless it is a universal but contradictory fact about Quakers that, whereas their gait, habit, and ritual are monotonous and plain, their heads are secretly filled with a rapturous and fandangling speech. We descended to Pierce's room, where a fire was burning in the small grate. In front of the fire stood a man of perhaps 40 years. I bade him good evening, but he only nodded at me. "Shall I unbutton?" he asked Pierce. "Yes," said Pierce, his voice choking with anticipation. "Unbutton, sir." I watched as the man took off his coat and lace collar and began loosening his shirt. He let the shirt fall to the floor. Bound to his chest, and covering his heart, was a steel plate. Pierce, at this moment, took a handkerchief from his sleeve and mopped his moist brow. The man removed the plate, under which was a wad of linen.